What about the dolphin scene, Zach? Should we talk about that?
That was from the pilot. That was more time. Yeah, there's a lot of weird, like, lost media, because that ended up kind of coming back in a weird... Yeah, there's a scene in the pilot.
We used elements of it, definitely.
Yeah, there was a scene... I mean, there's two ways to kind of categorize stuff that was cut. One was just for time, and I would say literally every single episode... I think it was literally every single episode we had to cut stuff, like jokes or moments or things like that. Yeah. It wasn't substantial, but no,
it was good. Cutting the fat was good too, because it was like...
It's good exercise.
Yeah, it was like a challenge, and it made it funnier, I think.
Yeah, and also the way we look at that is, well, that can be stuff that we do in other episodes. If it's a really strong idea and you had to cut it, and you come back and revisit it like a year later or 6 months later, you're still laughing, you're still finding what was amusing about it in the first place. Those ideas will stay. And then sometimes you cut something and you look at it, you go, okay, I'm glad that was cut. But in terms of what was cut, in the pilot, this is more for writing stuff. Originally, the way it played out was, I think we moved like 2 scenes around, but originally it was like they go to Daveland, we have the montage. I think we cut back to
we didn't
the
have
Alan
them.
thing.
Yeah, well, was it just there was no such thing as being outside Daveland. They went to the beach to the dolphins.
That scene about the sun is just going to explode, all that shit. That happened in a different scene. Basically, it was like after the montage, when we cut back from the Alan B story, there was, in the current version, they cut back and they're ending Daveland, which makes it feel like they were there all day. But in the original draft, Pim still gets depressed at the end of Daveland. Before that, we cut back, and instead of going to the end of Daveland where we have it now, they're at a beach, and there's like a bunch of dead dolphins around, like a big oil spill.
There was an oil spill from a big tanker, yeah.
Yeah, and the whole idea was, and Pim is like fully really depressed this time. There wasn't a moment where he kind of became depressed, where like in the pilot where he kind of looks down like that, where he breaks. It was like essentially the implication was, like, I think originally Desmond or Charlie, one of the two characters says like, well, we took you to the monster truck show and like the pinwheel factory. Basically, it was the original idea was they just go to Daveland. They went to like 20 other things. And we got a note that basically said, well, this scene feels kind of like it's repetitive. You should combine the beat of, as they call it, of this scene, which is Pim gets sad. We combine that. So that's one way. And in terms of the actual rest of the series, there was a few things we had to cut because of S&P, not because of Adult Swim. S&P is a different, like, I think it's technically part of the whole thing, but they're basically the people that come in and say... Standards and practices, yeah. And they basically just come in, and they're the fun police. And if you have anything that's funny or slightly a good idea, they'll come in and want to change it.
They're usually against gore, like brain matter, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You can do, like, violence in these kind of, like, animation shows for Adult Swim, but as soon as they're like, is pink brain matter, that's when they're like, oh, you can't do that, so you just change the color. It doesn't make sense. Specific organs, like you can't show like it, and people, like, we say this and people go, well, what about like this show or this show that definitely showed that? We said the exact same thing. Yeah, we don't know, we have no idea.
We don't know.
Like, why did they get away with it?
I'm sure there's a million things behind it.
It's all about like negotiations. It's like, and then like, the times changed too. Like 10 years ago, you could do more smoking in shows. Like now they're really hard on smoking and vaping. We had a big, the whole vape scene with Satan in the Christmas episode. That was a battle to get just that shot.
Well, and originally, two things. Number one, you're exactly right. They said cut it completely. They wanted it they said make it something else. Don't even make it vaping. They said make that But by the way, this is where we're animating the fucking episode. So we're like, we literally can't do that. And it came down to this thing where, we won't get too much into it, but we basically just said we can't. We're not going to change it. We can't. It makes sense. And also, it's kind of an anti-vaping message in the episode.
The compromise too was to make the smoke like red and like look a little bit mystical. And we're like, whatever. Yeah. And then they're like, okay, you can do it. We're like, all right. Like the compromise was just so simple in the end.
What did they want it changed to instead of vape?
They didn't have a pitch. They just want it removed. And it's like, dude, it's part of the story. It's like Charlie's supposed to be seeing himself in the Devlin. It was like,
well, that's what I was also going to touch on. Was actually originally, and I think it's gone completely. But in that original, at the start of the episode, we tried to really mirror as much as we could. Tried to mirror, basically what the two are doing, so that Charlie essentially sees himself in Satan. That was the whole idea. So, but anyways, at the beginning of the episode, when he takes the drink of that Monster Energy drink, originally he takes a hit off a vape pen that was the same exact model as what Satan has. So, but by the time we had won the other battle with the vape, we just said it was just over.
Yeah. That was the point. He was supposed to see the vape and be like, oh, like that's really like me. Like it, he's looking at himself in the mirror. But that's all right.
Yeah.
That's okay. We got the Satan vape in there at least,
Yeah.
which was the last battle we ever had.
Two more quick little things for you is that I can remember off the top of my head was DJ Spit, his pubes.
Oh, yeah.
He originally had pubic.
He did have pubes.
Graphic. Nothing graphic.
It was just normal. Yeah.
It was nothing horribly. Okay, somebody even I'm looking at the chat here for people that are listening to this later. I'm watching live, and somebody just posted a GIF. If you look where you can see that little pelvic mark, he had hair, kind of just little curly. I mean,
just peeking out.
Yeah,
just peeking out like it normally would.
Hey.
And he was fully. But the thing is, he was fully 100% animated. Like everything you're seeing there, that was animated.
Yeah. Someone had to go in and erase every frame where there's pubes. Like
they shaved him. They shaved his pubes.
They did, and I don't think it was on a separate layer. It was it's like the cross, I think, is all on one layer. So
I would actually love to know who that was. If someone could post about that.
Identify yourself. Step forward from the police line. Who? Yeah. Because what
real
would
hero
be great
of smiling friends.
It happened so late, but if we had like an extra 2 weeks on that episode, I would have loved tongue in cheek to have credited that person as pube remover, pube censor. It's like when Stalin removed that guard, it never existed. But and then the final little thing we had to remove was in Simon S. Salty, the murder mystery episode. There's that where they're doing every character. Without spoiling it, every character. I think everyone's seen it by now. On KimCartoon.
His 123.com on Pirate Bay.
GorillaVid.xyz.de. Yeah, but anyways, but episode 5, the Salty episode, Mustard, when she's telling her story, it cuts to her performing fellatio on Mr. Salty, and originally we had basically something pretty similar to what Charlie's grandma does in the last episode. Just a sucking
sound.
Just a nice sucking noise. And her head was supposed to go up and down on ones. And what that means for non-animators, basically just literally, there's 24 frames in a second, and it was going to just be
extremely quick. Extremely quick.
Like other moments in the show. So it's just supposed to be her going, basically the joke to us was, she's sucking him impossibly fast. It's not like a realistic...
so physically possible.
It's not realistic where he's going suck me. It's supposed to be like
machine gun.
Like you took a cocksucking robot and just hacked it. So anyways,
and they said no. They said you're not allowed to do that. I'm sorry.
And they said okay,
but that's how mustards do it. Everybody knows that, right?
I know. And
I thought that.
We tried to
that
tell
was
them
also
that.
to us that's well. As the audience, you're going, oh, I get it. Maybe she is innocent. Maybe, maybe she's not. Didn't do anything bad. But anyhow.
At least we got his voice going. Oh, we got the moaning from Perry himself, which was very nice.
But the mustard on ones, they said you can't do this.
Can't do it.
Well, they did a piece. They did salami tactics. They did it piece by. They didn't just fully.
Salami tactics.
First, it was little strategy bits. So first, it was the head going up and down. They didn't want, and then we're like, can we keep the sucking sound? Like, yeah. But then later, no, you can't have the sucking sound. And they removed it. They removed it without telling us. They told the mixer to get rid of it. It was very sneaky.
Oh no! Now that is censorship.
Well, this is basically 1984. If you really think of it. If you really think of it, the mustard's sucking the real man's penis until orgasm. Being taken out.
That's right. That's right. That's what this podcast is about. How to be funny in this day and age, guys. And
that's exactly right.
I really want your insight into this with the censorship of mustard blowjobs and everything that's going on these days.
Just be silly.
It's getting tough.
Just don't take anything seriously. Just have fun. Be as silly as possible.
Wait, so but how did they allow the grandma with the lollipop, which I must tell you is Matt's favorite thing that he's ever seen since the Mr. Boss breastfeeding thing?
Because that's innuendo, I guess. She was actually sucking a man's penis. The mustard was sucking a penis, while that lollipop's not a real sexual thing. That's genuinely how we got away with it.
Though? Yeah. I mean, who made that sound? That's another thing that
we asked Brendan, and he said he didn't do it.
No, Zack,
we begged him. We begged Brendan, who, by the way, I just have to say very quickly also,
by the way,
shout out.
So I was just going to quickly say, I was doing the sort of shake sound of that, but Zack, you were doing the so it was
you'd have to go rant me out. I was doing the gagging, what you call the gagging part. Now, before anybody says anything, I did it with my own voice. I didn't suck on nothing. I just said that, and I just basically went, and then that was sped up and looped.